the biography of our speaker tonight and the much he is doing as the state's top law enforcement officer. But I want to highlight a few things as we introduce him to be our Family and Friends Gay Pride speaker this year of 2014. Let's be clear about something. Eric Schneiderman's record on LGBT rights is second to none in the state of New York. We are proud of the work you have done in your previous positions and in your current position. Your push for marriage equality in the state Senate and as Attorney General, you've been unflinching in your support of hate crimes, same-sex marriage, employment non-discrimination, and the list goes on and on. If there is a piece of legislation or a legal issue that's related to the full equality for LGBT people, for our protections in the workplace and on the street, for our families, and for our loved ones, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has been absolutely in the leadership. It's unusual to have a politician serving in all these different roles to which we can say the 100% record that you get doesn't come only from political conceptual thinking. He's out there when it's not popular to be out there. He's been out there historically when it hasn't been popular. And frankly, Attorney General, I've been told by Amy Rutkin that you have a long, long history of very close lesbian friends. And we know, and I hear in the certain political lesbian community that Eric Schneiderman is the best one to hang out with. So there's a particular relationship that we have with you, and we're delighted that it both reflects your personal values, your deep, long-time life friendships, and your commitment to making New York State a place in which all of us are treated with equal dignity and fairness in every possible setting. So it is a great pleasure that I have to invite you and to welcome you to our Bima to be our CBST's Family and Friends speaker for 2014.
Thank you all. Wow. Outed as a lesbian in a man's body. First of all, thank you. This is such a beautiful, beautiful service. I belong to congregation B'nai Jeshurun up on the west side in my community, and it's Mazel Tov. It's a service. And I've been to many shuls and shtibels all over our great state, but this is really an extraordinarily beautiful service. And I have to say, what you do with the music is just moving, remarkable. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Rabbi Kleinbaum, for that introduction. Rabbi Weiss, your president, Dr. Goldstein, and everyone else. It's good to be here with the Rebbitzin, one of my longtime friends and allies in politics, and one of the great, not just a great labor leader, but a great political leader of the country, Randy Weingarten. And I'm honored especially to be here to speak at a service that welcomes family and friends. And one of the most important things anyone can learn in life, and something that I'm taught over and over again as I work in what I consider to be, I happen to play the role of Attorney General right now. But my work is a work of political activism through all the different phases of my life. And I've learned that no one does anything alone. It's all about family and friends, and it's all about understanding community, because it takes a commitment to collaboration and to true recognition of the bonds that unite us to achieve anything worth achieving, to achieve anything significant in life, at a personal level, at a spiritual level, and certainly in politics. My rabbi sometimes refers to a particular phenomenon that aggrieves American society right now, which he describes as the self-made man that worships his creator. This is a very bad error of judgment in my view, because none of us does anything alone. None of us gets there alone. We've all depended on so many others. I just came from speaking in Brooklyn, where my father grew up in a very modest community, got a great education in our public schools, went to Brooklyn College for free. And then after serving in World War II, went to law school on the GI Bill. So we don't recognize the success in our family as something you achieve on your own. We recognize that we all get help, we all need help, and we all owe it to our community and our society to provide help to others. I am proud to be joined here by a group of my staff members. Josh Meltzer, many of you know, who is my deputy chief of staff, was a senior political advisor to John Stryker and a part of the Empire State Pride Agenda team that worked its way around the country and through the many travails it took to make marriage equality a reality in the state of New York. And others here, Allegra is my volunteer coordinator, David Manser, and actually there's a lot of people who showed up for this. This is good, and Roy Sherman. So I don't want to speak for a long time, but this is a very moving service for me, and I have to say that in my work as Attorney General, I work for justice. I'm fortunate enough to have a job that requires me to work every day for justice. The building that my lawyers work in Albany is called the Justice Building. And we work every day to advance the essential American notion of equal justice under law, which is at the root of the mission, the project that is the United States of America, but it's also deeply ingrained and deeply rooted in the Jewish tradition. In fact, in Hebrew, we use two different words for justice, as I'm sure many of you know, and it really breaks out the concept for me in a way that's very significant. Tzedek and mishpat, and we can use them together or separately, and they convey the combination of things that to me make justice. One of them is a more legalistic term, meaning justice applied equally, exactly what the law prescribes, following, that's mishpat. Tzedek is a more general notion that we should do the right thing, so we enforce the law, and we apply all the laws, but it's overlaid with a sense of what we want to end up with. And if following the laws seems to produce an unjust result, you rely on your own inner sense of what is right to see that the result comports with that sense of justice that you can only get from something other than a law book. You can only get from your conscience, from prayer, from reflection, from something that connects you to a deeper type of justice. And in my view, the project of the United States is really a mission of making the words of the founders of the United States ever more true. Because when Thomas Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal, we know that those words literally were not true. First of all, women weren't even in the sentence. Slavery was widespread. Jews and other non-Christians labored under a host of disability laws. And the project of America was the project of a succession of movements, of those who brought us closer and closer to this great ideal of equal justice under law. And the abolition movement, the women's suffrage movement, the labor movement, the civil rights movement, the LGBT movement, each generation is challenged to leave this society more equitable, more just, more fair than we found it. And that is a challenge we now face as our generation is called to it. And I have to say that this congregation really sort of embodies that sense of transformation, that sense of aspiration that is at the core of my belief in Judaism and at the core of my belief in my work as a public official in the United States of America. Your compassion, your inclusiveness, what you practice here amongst yourselves is a part of the larger practice of transformation of society. We all aspire towards connection. We all inspire towards community. We just have to allow everyone to see what is in their own hearts. And politics, if you look at it as I do, is all about changes in consciousness, right? Just think about it in the long term. I wrote an article a while ago breaking down my political work into two parts: transactional politics and transformational politics. And transactional politics is kind of what happened in Albany in the last 48 hours at the end of the session. What can I do to pass a bill on immigration reform or on gun control right now, today, given where everyone's opinion is? And it requires you to deal with political realities at the moment, do the best you can. But transformational politics, which is often neglected, I find, by a lot of people on the progressive side of the political spectrum, is what are you doing in between transactions to change the way people think, to change the language of the debate, to change the consciousness of the people who you then will come back to and try and get a deal that is better than the deal you can get today in 2 years or 5 years or 20 years or 50 years. And the transformational work is really what motivates me. We are here to build movements, to bring ourselves closer to the ideal of equal justice under law. And I have to say, the activists and many people in this room are friends of mine who have transformed the consciousness of Americans about the LGBT community. That is the work that enabled us to pass marriage equality in New York and to win in court in case after case where the laws that would keep us less equal are struck down and are falling like dominoes all across the country. That transformational work is what makes the transactions possible, whether in a legislature or in a court. There's an expression that lawyers use: the Supreme Court reads the New York Times. And that's a way of saying what the public is feeling and thinking is reflected in our laws, is reflected in the laws we pass, and reflected in the decisions of our judges. And I'm very proud of the fact that our generation, which is not lived up to every expectation, and we have a lot of work to do in a lot of areas, but we have participated in the transformation of American consciousness about the LGBT community, because movements are not won when politicians show up and pass laws. That's the end. And I would respectfully submit as an elected official that none of the great movements I've just mentioned was ever started by someone who is a public official. Public officials show up at the end, right? The civil rights movement was not won when Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act. The civil rights movement was won when white people and black people looked at each other and their consciousness had changed, and white people saw black people as their brothers and sisters. And we've seen this happen in the LGBT community. Our work is not done. There is a lot of injustice and intolerance still out there, but the victories are so much more possible because the work you've all done, we've all done. I'm proud to have been a participant in this over the last many decades. It's 45 years ago was Stonewall. A lot of us are old enough to remember, and yet it seems as though it's been a very short time in some ways for me. I have to say that the work we do now, and I'm very proud of the work we do in our office. I'm very proud of the fact that I've defended all the cases against our marriage equality law. We led the effort to bring states together in an amicus brief on behalf of a great, brave New Yorker named Edie Windsor, and take a case to the Supreme Court that had a profound impact on all of America and really all of the world. We have done work to see that corporations and government institutions live up to their obligations to provide equal justice to the LGBT community. We've been doing a lot of work on ensuring that our transgender community has the support that they need. We had to work with the Greater New York Hospitals and with the Health and Hospitals Corporation to see that there were protocols in place for the treatment of transgendered New Yorkers as patients, which there were not before our office got involved. There is work still to do, but we are able to get these transactions done. And I know President Obama has announced that he's signing an executive order banning federal contractors from discriminating based on sexual orientation, which will bring justice to, I think, something like 11 million workers around the United States. These are all great steps, great transactions, but it is a part of the broader movement. So I would really ask you, as my partners, as my colleagues, as my brothers and sisters in the building of this movement to make our nation more just, to open people's minds and hearts to the possibilities of greater equality and greater justice, never neglect the transformational work. Think about the language you use. Talk to people. Reach out to people. You would be amazed at the folks who are just waiting for the opportunity to open their hearts. And, you know, the things that we do that catch a lot of public attention. We did this amazing work in the last year or two where we reached agreements with pretty much all of the major sports leagues to take very strong action against discrimination against gay and lesbian athletes, because, you know, until the last year or so, there were no out athletes in Major League sports. Astonishing, right? But we've seen this happen over the last couple of years, and my office met with the representatives of Major League Baseball, basketball, football, and dealt with the issue of not asking recruits at colleges whether or not they had girlfriends or whether or not they like girls. And they now have adopted a whole new set of protocols, and they're training people differently, and now we have out basketball players and out football players that everyone can look to. When you root for your favorite team, you can know that you're rooting for a team that has at least acknowledged its obligation to respect the dignity and the rights of all. So these transactions are wonderful. The work we have ahead of us is wonderful, but the transformation is what I live for. And let us go forward understanding that the LGBT community is not fighting just on its own behalf, that the fight for human rights has to extend to all those still in need, and all those who our generation has really not delivered for. We have to fight for the rights of immigrants. We have to fight for the rights of low-wage workers. And if you haven't been a part of the 15 in a union movement with the fast food workers, the car wash workers, there will be nothing that will open your heart more than participating in that. I've long been of the view that one of the things that limits progressive politics is a failure to recognize that meditation and prayer is a profoundly political act, and that collective action for the common good is a profoundly spiritual act. So as a part of our spiritual practice, let us unite together. Let us do the work that God has admonished us to do, that our Constitution has admonished us to do, that all of our traditions tell us we should do. Let us transform our nation and our world into a more just, more equitable place. Let us never neglect those who still are in need, and let us take our victories and savor them. But come every Friday night and put it down and understand the great gratitude, not for the victories and not for our wealth, but the gratitude for the fact that we are aware of our mission in the world and that we embrace it. We are here to transform. We are here to heal. We're here to bring Tikkun Olam. And I thank you for inviting me into your community and your sanctuary, and I thank you for being a part of the great movement that I'm proud to enjoy participation in and will for the rest of my life. Thank you.